What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the CompileSwift podcast. We have a very, very special one today. I've got some good friends with me today. You're going to recognize these people if you've been hanging out on the live streams. And yes, we are going to talk about WWDC24. In particular, we've had the keynote today and the State of the Union, and we're going to dive into those. And we're going to go in here. I'm going to ask each of the guests to introduce themselves, and we're just going to round table a discussion here. So whichever wants to go first. We've got two folks here. Number one, go for it. Whoever wants to go first.
I can take that. I'm Jeff Pato, indie iOS developer, iOS, visionOS, macOS, all the things developer. And I stream as Cocoatype on Twitch.
Hey everyone, my name is Dave Nutter. I am a software developer, iOS mostly, a little bit of macOS here and there. I also stream on Twitch under the name Nutterfi.
Yeah, excellent. We are glad to have you all here. We're going to use, probably we'll be referring to each other by our screen names because we're going to do that. We're going to break down some topics here and go through them. The logical place for us to start is we will start with all of the major operating systems, right? No surprise to anybody. Major new versions for everything this year. I'll start by saying I was surprised how little attention was given to the Apple Vision Pro. Mm-hmm. Of course, we got version 2 of the OS. I felt it was almost, kind of Apple saying, yeah, we've got this brand new platform. We're not going to say too much about it today. We've revamped it, given it a few little things. Any thoughts on that, folks? Because I was surprised. I really thought that was going to be the thing that this year I'd be like, oh gosh, stop talking about it. But they barely started.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. It definitely seems like they cleaned up a lot of the interactions. They moved a lot of the stuff to your wrists that previously required staring at the ceiling to open up Control Center or open up Home or anything like that. But they didn't really add a whole lot of new features for something that is supposed to be a V2 of a new product. And so between that and how long it took to get the visionOS 1.2 out, I'm almost wondering if they're having some kind of development issue internally.
I'm looking at it and I'm wondering if they're having a bit of a rethink. I mean, I'm just, let's be honest, there was a lot this year and maybe they just felt, okay, we need to get this other stuff in because it applies to more of the audience. But I expected Apple to be Apple and to sort of force it on us. Do you know what I mean?
That could be true. I was going to say, the funny thing about these State of the Unions and these, there's a lot that's packed into an hour. And what they choose to present is always an interesting choice. For example, we heard the first 5 minutes were about Apple TV programs, and it felt like some of those minutes could have better been spent on things that the developers actually care about more, like the devices and the OSs. And it really didn't give visionOS update a chance to really shine. As someone who hasn't purchased it yet, still kind of on the fence as to whether or not I should get one, it really didn't give me any more reason to, other than, oh, that looks cool. And so I was expecting more as well.
That's a good point, right? Because I remember, I think it was last year, here we were kind of saying, hey, Apple, don't forget that you've got that Apple TV thing, right? And here it is right up front this time around. But maybe that does speak to part of the problem now, which is there are so many platforms, so many things that they really cannot cover them all. And they almost have to pick which are the ones we want to bring to the forefront here, right? And I say that also thinking to myself that Apple right now, I think they even maybe dropped to number 3 behind NVIDIA and that. And if they look at it, maybe the bean counters have said, look, it's a lot easier for us to ship a lot more Apple TVs than it is Vision Pros, something like that.
I also wonder in terms of, you said cover, and made it sound as though just the amount of time that they have in the keynote to talk about this kind of stuff. But I almost wonder if they're spread too thin on an engineering perspective.
Oh, for sure.
They have to build out all of these AI features across iPad and iPhone and visionOS and all of these different things that it's like, okay, visionOS has to take the back seat this year. I mean, last year we went an entire year with really nothing to iPadOS. Is it just we're going to have a cycle of this year is, a rebuilding year for visionOS. This year is the rebuilding year for iPadOS. We're going to have this endless cycle of this is more of a year for this product, and this is more of a year for this product, and some products are just going to take a back seat every couple of years.
Oh, I agree for sure. I think, I think I speak for a lot of folks when I say Apple is way too thin on the ground, believe it or not, for such a huge company. From an engineering perspective, plus put these things in little blocks, right? And having folks work on certain things and how they don't always align across all the products. For example, even on the hardware side, with the iPad being the most powerful hardware right now, that I think that does happen. And, to that note, I'll throw this out here. Who wants to talk about, which one do you want next? The iPad or the iPhone?
There's definitely the big thing that was the focus was customization of the home screen. I guess it was the first thing that they talked about. Something that obviously users have wanted for a very long time. And to see it available now is great. Some of the stuff under the hood, the most important stuff, obviously, having Apple Intelligence powered features on the device, of course, is huge. This, I think, is going to be quite a huge update as to what people can do on their phones. People have been hoping that Siri could be more useful. Talked about it for many years, and to have these capabilities now is makes it quite hopeful. I got to be honest. I'm a little bummed that my 14 Pro Max isn't going to be getting some of these features, and I'm like, why? But I get that there's probably something in the internals that would prevent that. But clearly, it does provide some incentive for people to upgrade their phones. So I'm looking forward to seeing the great new things that can come with that. These apps can be much more useful, contextual, in-app, asking Siri to, whether it's something related to messages or contacts or maps. That's always a good thing, not having to go outside of the app that you're in, get the task done. And also, we'll see, but what APIs are available for third-party apps to take advantage of these new features. It's something that's I'm really looking forward to diving into.
I think we're going to talk about sort of AI across the board as a subject, because that's kind of how Apple has played it. But it was interesting. Your comment there about, sorry, iPhone 14 owners, you don't get this, because one of the things that I've always been impressed with is how Apple makes the new operating system versions work as far back as they can, really, right? Usually many versions. But here we have a unique situation where probably, I've no doubt older devices like the iPhone 14 will get the OS, but it won't get some of the features. And I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, I kind of want to go back to what Nutter was saying about this being a very focused around customization. And I think that even if you look at a lot of the AI features, they kind of all go into that same sort of thing. You had a lot of the like image generation stuff that was related to like the messaging that you're having. And you look at like some of the messaging stuff, they're like, you can now send any emoji as a tap back. You can now, do different things with your photos and whatnot. That I think that it's kind of interesting how they're going to pitch this to users, because I think that they will kind of lump all of this into even the AI stuff. I would strongly doubt that they're going to market that to, billions of people on, TV, broadcast TV or whatnot, by saying, oh, your app now has artificial intelligence. Like that sounds like the kind of thing that Google would market their OSs with. But I think Apple's going to be a lot more around like, these are ways that you can be more creative and be more expressive. And so I think that there is a lot of those features still coming to every phone that they'll go, okay, yeah, some of this like image generation stuff, that's not going to come to the phone, but tinting your icons, that's all there. The tap back with any emoji, that's all there.
I was going to say the one for me, and the one that I think a lot of people, I thought my headphones were going to explode with you all screaming how awesome it was. And me too. When they said, here we are now, 15 years, and we're like, oh, and by the way, you can now put your icons anywhere you want on the home screen.
Yeah.
Not just try and figure out this grid layout.
The other one that I was the other one that I was thinking of at the time was being able to replace those buttons on the home screen, the lock screen, flashlight and camera buttons, and just here's an end to the amount of times that I have my phone in my pocket with the flashlight on, and I can just put something else there instead.
Yeah, no, you're right, because I think I even said at the time, the amount of times I've not wanted to use the flashlight, and there I am in the middle of the night, right, going from my office, turned everything off to the bedroom, and the lights are off, and boom, the iPhone torch comes on, and you're like, great, now I can't see. That's fantastic. Yeah. And also because I do want something more interesting, right? We also said about that side button, what do they call it? The action button, I think it is. Yes. And how I have mine set to activate the camera, and I've now programmed myself to use it that way. The next logical step is, yes, on the lock screen, I should be able to replace those with whatever applies to me. I hardly ever make phone calls, hardly ever need to use the torch, so let me do something more useful with them.
If you've replaced your action button with the camera, then why do you also have the camera on your lock screen? You can put whatever you want there now instead of having two different ways to quickly access the camera.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that for users on other platforms can point and say, hey, we've had these features for years. It's like, yeah, we get it. It's there's definitely a little bit of envy there, but this is a little boon to those of us who are making do with what what the system gives us. Clearly, there's a market for interest for this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given this any thought. But it is nice to see, like Cocoatype was mentioning, the creative aspects. I think is what Apple is hoping to market to the consumers is, hey, look at everything that you can do. You can make this your own. This goes farther back with like different case colors, for example. It's just like one component, and yeah, maybe a little bit late to the party, as Apple frequently is with features. But when they finally do bring something to the OS or to the hardware, it's you can tell that a lot of TLC has been baked into it. So I'm really hoping to have some fun with that, with the betas.
I think in this case, they're late to the party on their own OS, though, too, to an extent. I mean, with iOS 14, we had so much of the widgets, the custom widgets, the aesthetic home screens, the custom app icons that they weren't previously doing before. And you see how much of like what they're doing now with this version of the OS really has its origins in TikTok videos from 4 OSs ago that people were doing to customize their home screens at that point and do stuff with like invisible app icons just to be able to rearrange their icons in a way that they wanted to do stuff. And now Apple's really finally catching up to what people were kind of hacking the OS in order to get it to do.
Well, I was going to add to that as well. It kills off in a good way for once. They've Sherlocked the right thing. And I'll say this, so people can flame me for it. They've Sherlocked those, I don't want to call them scammy, those apps that purport to make the user think they can customize their home screens to look exactly how they made them look today. But in reality, it's, well, you sort of make a shortcut, give it a custom icon, do this, and people charge for those apps. And of course, you can do it with shortcuts and that for free. But I think kudos to Apple for, number one, making it happen and making it simple. And number two, hopefully stopping some of that kind of activity, should we say, in the App Store. And so that makes me happy. But I also wanted to comment on Apple. You both said about Apple being late to the party. And I never mind Apple being late to the party somewhat, because it usually means, look, we're not going to just jump on the bandwagon. We're going to think about this and try and do it better way before we bring it out. But that said, Cocoatype, you're quite right. In this case, they're late to the party on their own OS, which in some ways is a little bit unforgivable. But with these new seemingly small feature changes today, I feel like at last, when they say make your iPhone yours, I can finally do that.
I wouldn't say that it's a case where, they should be shamed for being that late to the party on their own OS, because
sure.
In a sense, it is showing the power of the tools that they provided before, especially shortcuts in particular. Users were able to do this kind of stuff, even though Apple wasn't providing it for them. And that really has now driven Apple's own feature sets, basically. And I'm really excited to see, with the focus on app intents that they're really doing to drive some of this Apple Intelligence stuff, I think this is only just going to lead more into users building the features that they want for themselves. And then Apple kind of is able to go, well, hey, what are users already doing that we could make way easier for them and build into the system?
Hey folks, if you like what you're hearing in this podcast and you want to help this podcast to continue going forward and having great guests and great conversations, I invite you to become a Patreon supporter. You can go to patreon.com/CompileSwift, where you will get ad-free versions of the podcast along with other content. I want to move us on just quickly. There's one thing I wanted to touch on macOS. Now, macOS to me is always a progressive thing. I've said this before. It's a very mature platform, and it's more about refinement at this point. But the one thing that I think, hopefully, if it works as advertised, will change my life for the better, is being able to see essentially a VNC of my phone on my Mac. Because it doesn't matter what time of day it is, what day of week it is, I never have my dang phone with me when I need it. And I'll give you the use case in a second. But I thought I'd solved this by having the Apple Watch so I could leave my phone anywhere in the house. I'm sure you felt the pain. Every time I go to log into something and it's like, oh, give me your 2-factor code. And then it's like, oh, dang it, where's my phone? Right? So being able to see my phone on my Mac for that one reason alone makes it worth the price of entry. Oh, we should say it. The name this year is Sequoia, which I think we universally agree is pretty darn awesome, right? It's cool. It feels right, Okay, great.
I want to talk about how awesome watchOS is this year. Yeah, so watchOS 11, we got all kinds of cool things for both devs and for consumers. The thing that I think everybody that I see that, regularly uses their Apple Watch has been banging on for years is, I want a way to say, I'm sick today. I don't want to deal with the Apple Watch thing, but I don't want to lose my streak. I had something, just 2 or 3 days ago where it's like, I accidentally didn't put my watch on the charger right overnight. And then it was dead in the morning. And then I spent the first hour or two in the day not having my watch on. And it's like, I'm going to lose my streak for reasons that are not really, my fault, or on a day where I'm just sick or something like that. And so, I've cheated it before. It's like, okay, well, today my move goal is a third of what it normally is, or something like that. And now Apple has finally gone okay, we realize people deal with this stuff sometimes, we're going to say you can pause it for a day, and that's totally fine. You don't have to worry about losing your streak. Similarly, they built in the ability to have different times or different goals for different days where you can say, I do a lot of walking for my day job, or I do a lot of physical movement during the week. And I'm going to say, my goal for Monday through Friday is X amount. And then my goal for Saturday or Sunday is X minus 200. Or something like that, or vice versa. Maybe you're very into active sports over the weekend. You can actually bump it up on the weekend, et cetera, et cetera. Those are some really big consumer-facing features that I think they brought to watchOS this year that I think a lot of people that use watchOS have been clamoring for quite a while.
Oh, I agree. I feel like what they gave me this year on the watch and also the iPad, but perhaps more importantly on the watch, they gave me a reason to keep using my watch. And what I mean by that is, I'd fallen into that camp of like, you know what? I've got so many devices with me all the time. Do I really still need the watch? But now that they've done, like you said, all these things, it's like, yeah, okay, that's good. You've solved my pain points, because every January, that first time I don't complete my circles is like, well, that's it. Screw it. I've messed it up for another year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Any time that you can provide your user with customization options or allowing them to use it the way that works best for them, that's a win. These streaks, it's psychological, right? Like you, for whatever reason, you can't fill in your circles that day. It just kills the momentum. So yeah, I totally get that. And similar to the devices across the board. I know we haven't talked about iPad yet, but like it'll give me a reason to actually like turn my iPad on, take it out of the drawer. You know what I mean? Like these little things that are supposed to surprise and delight. Yep. Right? Like that's the reason why we got it in the first place. Maybe we wanted to try to build an app for that platform, and we quickly realized, this is going to take a little while. I'll work on it later. You put it in the pile next to the other, like, abandoned projects that you have. And all of a sudden, a year has gone by and, do I even have an iPad? I forgot if I had an iPad. So like, these things that help as a user, because you got to think as a user, not just as a developer, right? Because like we have these like all fun ideas that we would like, but is it useful to me? Okay, cool. Would it be useful to anybody else? Okay, great. How can I make something that someone wants to gives them a reason to open the app or to use the device? So
let's talk about iPad. iPad this year got the feature that it should have had from day one, and arguably is one of the most useful features. Who wants to take it? What might that feature be?
Oh man, yeah, I'm all about this one. So clearly, the calculator app is the most asked for feature or app on the platform ever since the iPad was first introduced, right? And it was almost just kind of a joke. It's like, well, we've gone this long without it. Like they're never going to release something like this. It's like it's like Valve and getting a Half-Life 3. It's like everybody's waiting for it, and they know that if they ever do release it, it's not going to meet anybody's expectations. This was really cool to see because not only did they provide a calculator app, but they have intertwined the Apple Intelligence features to help create something which in all places the Notes app, which would provide some calculation, graphing capabilities, updating in real time variables in your math equations. It looks really slick, and I am really excited about this one.
We got a number of different APIs, all kinds of stuff across all kinds of platforms. I'm gonna go back to where I started talking earlier with the watchOS. Just some of the obvious APIs that we're missing, but also some really nice ones. Last year they came out with this new watch, and it allows you to do this double tap functionality, and it's actually kind of a cool thing to get to do in the 3 Apple apps that support it. And that was it. And now they've finally brought that functionality over to third-party developers, and third-party developers can start to take advantage of that and have that kind of quick access functionality in their apps. And then I think the other big API that they brought to watchOS that seems like it wasn't asked for as much, but you see it and it goes, oh man, that's totally obvious, is the live activity functionality. You have these kind of like quick updates of all of the information that you want of something that's actively happening, and now it's on your watch where you see it. And I think the coolest example of this, or the coolest implementation of this that they have, this, like whenever you get a new update to it, and the UI that they show on the watch is literally the UI from the dynamic island on the phones. and it just pops up as a little bubble on the watch.
Yes.
And it looks perfect, and you're like, how did this not exist from the moment the dynamic island did?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was watching one of the videos afterwards, and essentially they said, "Hey, if you've made something for the dynamic island, guess what? You've pretty much already made this widget, the phone. For the watch, and also that they're interactive.
Yep.
Right. That's the other thing is you can make them. What I really was like, okay, wait. Now you're saying these are interactive. I don't need to open the app to do some things." And I can specify what I want them to be and what the double tap is going to be like. Okay, if I double tap in my app, I want the primary focus to be this thing, right? I mean, that's huge for developers.
Yep.
It's a big year for finally getting access to, like you say, a lot of things that we kind of felt we should have had in the past. And since we're not really talking about the Vision Pro this year, I guess they get a get out of jail free for not having to discuss why we don't have access still to some of the things. Maybe that's next year. It felt like a lot of these APIs were universal. I think we discussed this offhand, saying about, if I write this, this feature or use this API on one platform, I don't have to figure out how to do it on the other platform. It's just going to work for me.
Yeah, I did notice that in a couple of places that notably animations where they are taking the animation framework or library or whatever functionality so that it's agnostic to SwiftUI or UIKit that allows you to just kind of focus on what your app needs. And I haven't looked into it in detail yet, but I'm very much looking forward to learning more about these APIs that have been introduced this year.
I think the good thing is, for all of us, there's a lot of live stream material this year, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I say that, folks, because if you're not familiar with the live streams of these two guests, we'll put lots of links in the show notes because, we consider, and he'll deny it, but it's true, folks. We are lucky to have, I'm going to call him the true father of SwiftUI at this point, right? Nutterfi is absolutely amazing at what he does.
Oh,
and so, I feel like this year they finally recognized he's catching up with us. We better give him something to keep him busy,
I think
right?
During our...
I consider myself just an enthusiast.
I think during our live watch-throughs of the party, the number of times that we said, hey, this is for Nutter, this is for Nutter, this is for Nutter, just constantly.
Yes.
And even just watching the...
That's it.
Lots of
even just watching the what's new in SwiftUI talk, I went through several of those and said Nutter's going to like this.
It's just so fun. It's just so fun. And it's accessible. So to people that are starting out, they've got these ideas and sometimes it can be daunting, right? Learning a new language, learning a new framework. But, many of these are very, approachable.
Yep.
And you can do a lot with a little. And so, I'm so excited. I'm really excited about this stuff.
SwiftUI essentially gives you the ability to design, prototype, and ship all in one, right? You can rapidly use SwiftUI to do a quick layout. We've all done it on our streams. And then it's only a few tweaks to get something that is production worthy, right? And you just couldn't have that kind of speed when it was AppKit and UIKit. So I think, at this point, we've all, universally accepted that this is clearly the future that Apple wants us to have. And so what they do every year with refining it, even this year acknowledging themselves or trying to convince us how much they use SwiftUI, it's something that we've got to do, whether we want to or not. And in line with that too, of course, there's the updates to Swift Data this year. Very conscious of our time here. And I did, if you're both okay with this, I did want to touch on just quickly Xcode and then Swift 6 as well. Now, I'll start with Swift 6 because, first of all, we have completely forgotten to say happy birthday to Swift, right? 10 years. And it's been a very, very fast 10 years.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the fact that also in one of the videos I watched, Apple themselves saying, look, hey, don't forget, Swift is available on, yes, the Apple platforms, but Linux and Windows as well. And I think
and embedded hardware.
It's easy for folks to think that exactly, embedded too. And I was going to say, I think it's easy for folks to think, oh, it's that Apple thing, but it really isn't. The Swift video I watched, Ted was on there very heavily pushing, hey, none of this would have happened without the open source and Swift community. Anyone want to offer some thoughts on Swift 6?
I think a big part of exactly what you just said is the announcement today that they're kind of moving a lot of the Swift open source stuff out of the Apple GitHub organization and into this github.com/Swiftling instead. I think that's a very good sign that Apple is honestly pretty serious about this not just being the Apple language.
I was hoping they'd take it a step further and do that to SwiftUI as well, but
also the recognition that they gave to they always mention things like server side. Our good friend Giannis, right? Hummingbird and Vapor, but I felt like this year they were really saying, hey folks, these are projects too, and these are every bit as important as say Swift Foundation. And that actually gave me some good feels, because the recognition that, look, this is, yes, we came up with this, but it's not our thing. That's a very unusual stance from Apple. And so I felt that was important.
I noticed that too, because, you're only as strong as your community, right? At the end of the day, it's the developer community that's going to continue to push the platform forward. And showing your support to those who are, giving of their time and resources to come together to try to make something good, something great, elevate the platform. It was nice to see those.
Time for a break.
Hey everybody, it's Peter Whittam here from the CompileSwift podcast. I'm going to tell you about SetApp. SetApp is a service that provides a subscription fee of just $10 a month, and you get access to over 200 Mac applications, and it's also available now on iOS as part of that deal. I use the service because it just has a ton of really good first-rate apps that I use all the time. And for me, it's invaluable as a developer to have access to tools for things like APIs, for planning projects, writing emails, writing documentation. And you can get all of these things, including database apps, all of that kind of stuff, right there on the SetApp service for just $10 a month. You can use as many or as few applications as you need. If you're interested in checking this out, go to peterwhittam.com, peterwhitham.com/SetApp, SETAPP. And you can see the details there, and it's got a link that you can go over and start using the service and see how it works out for you. I strongly recommend this to every Mac user.
Break time over.
Shout out, for sure.
So, the clock's going to get us here, but I don't want to be the one to start the conversation about Xcode 16. Because the cool thing in Xcode 16 will upset a very good friend of all of ours. Shout out to you, Adam Wolf. So, along with the AI talks, who wants to talk about Xcode 16 so I don't have to give Adam the bad news?
Oh, I already gave Adam the bad news. He dropped it.
You've given it to... Oh, good. Good. You ripped off the Band-Aid.
We caught him up on everything, and I think he's already he's got plans on how he can kind of respond. So I think he's a good guy. He'll land on his feet, his webbed feet.
Good. Now I don't feel so bad about mentioning it. All right. So folks, what we're talking about here, if you're a developer, of course, you know that AI is all over everything these days. And we are getting, well done, Apple. We are getting Apple Intelligence, AI, in everything. But in particular, what matters for us in this conversation right now is in Xcode. We've all seen the PR demo of how it might work, and it looks very promising. We are all users of Adam's tool, Developer Duck. Go get it, folks. Go get it. Support it. But essentially, we're getting some AI assistance in Xcode that I think is going to be a good thing if it works the way it should, because for the most part, it's on device, which of course is always a thing that Apple says, and I fully support that. but you can take it to the next level with the cloud if you want to, I think is the best way to phrase that, right? Anyone have any thoughts on how they think this is going to go in Xcode?
It's interesting because they actually kind of have like two different sets of tools there. They have the AI-based code completion, and that is the one that it's, you know, kind of running as you type your code the same way that code completion has always kind of worked in theory. You know, we all know what worked means in terms of Xcode code completion. Then they have this new separate second thing called Swift Assist. And that is the one that is going out to the cloud and is way more, you're asking it questions. It's natural language. You're kind of generating something much larger. And that one is all based in the cloud. And so they do have these kind of two separate pieces. Now, the one kind of weird open question part is that Swift Assist is not in the current betas. They said it's coming later this year.
Yes.
It'll be something that we have later. It's the more powerful, more dramatic one, and that the code completion one, that is the one that runs locally and is, you know, more what you expect from a like code completer.
Yeah, and I think the way that they're doing this, sort of my take on this is they are carefully addressing the I'll say it, folks, the over-exaggerated concerns about AI is taking developers' jobs, and they're clearly positioning it as, no, the reality is it's here to help you. That is what I need. And what one of my earlier episodes this weekend, I was saying, look, you know, AI is coming. Obviously, we know this is going to be a thing in Apple stuff. And I want it to be something that assists me and can help get me out of trouble and perhaps write code for me when I know what I want to do, but not quite figure it out. Or in my case, as we all know on my live streams, I don't want to look at the documentation. So I'm hoping it works out there. Nutterfi, what do you think? Do you think this is going to help you? Are you excited to try the AI tools?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think I don't want to avoid the inevitable, meaning that, you know, if you have a tool at your disposal and you can use it, you should use it. I think that that's just something that, you know, rather than fear the prospects of us all being out of a job someday, you know, there has to be, we're going to need to maintain it somehow. Obviously, you look at the output of what's currently out there. We definitely need humans to keep the wheel, right? And these features are currently available in other IDEs. I think this was the answer to one of the answers to, you know, GitHub Copilot. It was it's a wave to, like I said, like take care of the tedious stuff that the boilerplate stuff maybe. As far as like, how do I do this new thing that I've never done before? Do I know that whether or not this is the best way to do it? You know, sometimes we wonder, how would Apple do it? Since they're the ones who made the APIs, how are we supposed to actually use these APIs in the best way? Because you know, there's like 500 million different versions of architecture in SwiftUI right now. And so what is the best way to use it for my app? That's something that hopefully these new features can help developers ship, because that's the name of the game, right? It doesn't matter so much how pretty your code is. It matters that you ship. And I'm hoping to ship this year. Hopefully everyone has the opportunity to ship as well.
I think that's an excellent point, right? Is if you frame these services in the sense of, as Apple is pointing out, it's going to understand you, just like all of their AI services across all their platforms. It's going to get to know you, and it's going to get to know how you build things, and it's going to hopefully teach and educate you based on the way that you work, as opposed to, you know, there's those old school days, you open up the book, you start reading, and 5 pages in, you're thinking, I don't relate to this is not how I work, right? So having these tools that is like a pair programming assistant that aids you in a way that it can communicate with you, hopefully, on whatever your level may be, rather than just telling me, look, just trust me, here's the code, go put this in, right? And so I'm hoping that's how it plays out. And so it becomes a great teaching tool as well. But I also love the idea of being able to say, I think I even mentioned this on my previous episode where I was like, look at my code. I've made my code do what I need it to do, but it's not the best way to write the code. Please now educate me to do the same thing in a better way so that next time maybe I improve, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an accelerated way to, I mean, if we were all to get together at like a dev meetup,
yes,
like how would you do that? How would you do XYZ? I've never done this before. Well, this is how I do it. Have you thought of it this way? This is just accelerating that process. And it could crash and burn.
Yeah.
You could be going down this path. Who knows, right? Like, we won't really know until we start trying this out.
Yeah.
But I think we'll quickly be able to find, hey, this maybe we have to like help steer it towards providing us with the solution that works for us. But I mean, we're the Swift developer community is so kind and willing to share with one another. We share code. We show examples. We post on all the platforms. We live stream it. We're not hiding our code behind anything. The next gold nugget or whatever. We freely share solutions with each other. I think that's just part of what makes our community so tight knit. And so, not sure where I'm going with this, but I'm not afraid of it. And I think we'll be all right.
No, I think you've nailed the way to wrap this discussion up by touching on the community, because we are all active members of the various Swift communities, and also, of course, folks that come to our live stream, and we always happily try to solve problems for folks that come to our live streams and say, hey, I got a question. It's like, great, let's go for it. And I love tools that enable us to keep doing that. Like you say, nothing is so secret that it's hidden under covers. We all want to help each other make awesome things, because that's the fun part. And if AI solves the not fun part, great, let's have it. Let me do the cool bit, and AI can do the mundane stuff. All right, folks. So there is so much this year. We could not possibly have covered it in one episode. I want to thank, Roundtable guests here. This has been an awesome conversation. You will find lots of links in the show notes for the Discord, where we all hang out, plus all of our live streams and everything else. But let's go around the table here quickly, and let's just remind folks where they can find you guys. Let's start with you, Nutterfi. Go for it.
All right. You'll find me mostly live streaming on Twitch. The current days and hours are Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 8 p.m. to midnight Pacific time. I do a little bit of developer stuff, but I also play video games on that platform. So if you're looking for programming and non-pro gaming, come to my channel, Twitch TV/Nutterfi.
Cocoatype, go for it.
Yeah. Everything that I do is a little bit in flux right now, but I also do live streams on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Cocoatype. Everything else for me, you can just find at cocoatype.com. And that'll tell you about my apps, all of my other socials, all of the things that people might want to do to find me.
Fantastic. And of course, you can find me, CompileSwift, on any of the things, any of the networks. Go to CompileSwift.com. On Twitch, it's twitch.tv/CompileDev, because not only do I do Swift, I do a lot of other things too. Mostly whatever the chat room dares me to try, like Rust, and I do a lot of game development. So with that, guys, thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time. It has been a very long day for us all, but this is our time of year, right? This is like our Christmas. So guys, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And folks, we will speak to you in the next episode.